Good evening and welcome to Business Live with me, Winston Taki. Coming up, the Bank of Ghana indicates plans to reassess the scope for a gradual easing in the policy rate stance.
So by a majority decision, the committee decided to raise the monetary policy rate by 100 basis points to 28%, and this is meant to re-anchor the disinflation process.
Also coming up, President John Mahama pledges support for Muslim business community to create job opportunities for youth at Eid Celebration Deba in Accra.
Our Zongo communities remain centers of entrepreneurship, trade, and cultural enrichment. However, we must do more to ensure that the development in our Muslim communities is balanced and catches up with the rest of the country.
This and more coming up in the next 30 minutes on this bulletin. Stay tuned. And now to our first business story. President John Mahama has promised to support the Muslim business community in creating more job opportunities aimed at providing employment for the nation's youth. He acknowledged the effort of the community, noting that the establishment of entrepreneurship centers and businesses in various Muslim areas and emphasized the need for government backing. President Mahama made these remarks during the Eid Celebration Deba in Accra.
Our Muslim communities have made significant contributions to Ghana's development, and I would like to take this opportunity to commend you for your efforts. From education and healthcare to business and governance, the impact of our Muslim brothers and sisters is evident everywhere. Our Zongo communities remain centers of entrepreneurship, trade, and cultural enrichment. However, we must do more to ensure that the development in our Muslim communities is balanced and catches up with the rest of the country. We must invest in quality education for our children. We must improve healthcare facilities and create opportunities that will help our youth to achieve their full potential. Education remains the most powerful tool for change, and I want to encourage our Muslim youth to embrace it fully. Education is our opportunity for social mobility. Islam itself teaches us that seeking knowledge is a lifelong duty for every Muslim. The future of Ghana hinges on our ability to equip our young people with the right skills and the mindsets to thrive in a constantly changing world.
Now, away from that, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana, by a majority decision, decided to raise the monetary policy rate by 100 basis points last week to 28.0% to re-anchor the disinflation process. According to the Central Bank Governor, Dr. Johnson Isiama, the committee emphasized that as inflation becomes firmly anchored, it will reassess the scope for gradual easing in the policy stance.
The persistent inflation dynamics over the past year, partly driven by both fiscal and monetary policy missteps, will require a policy reset to re-anchor the disinflation process. Now, to restore price stability going forward will require a tight monetary policy stance, strong liquidity management, and commitment to the 2025 budget, which seeks to reset the fiscal consolidation process. Now, on the monetary policy decision, under the circumstances, the committee, by a majority decision, and I mentioned majority decision, for the first time we are using a majority decision, unlike the unanimous decisions we have used in the last many years since the framework began. And so by a majority decision, the committee decided to raise the monetary policy rate by 100 basis points to 28%, and this is meant to re-anchor the disinflation process. as inflation becomes firmly anchored, and I want to emphasize that, as inflation becomes firmly anchored, as we see the next readings of inflation and we see declines, the committee will reassess the scope for a gradual easing in the policy stance. Now, let me say a few words on the additional operational measures. As usual, apart from the monetary policy decision itself, we often also announce a number of operational measures. Now, so in addition to the adjustment in the policy rate, we are implementing some complementary measures which are meant to strengthen liquidity management and enhance monetary policy transmission. And I want to give you three of those. First is we are introducing a longer dated 273-day instrument, which is meant to augment the existing sterilization toolkit. Secondly, we plan to intensify the monitoring of banks' net open positions to ensure compliance. And now all this is meant to ensure stability in the FX markets.
Now, to go deeper on this conversation, we are joined on Zoom by economist Dr. Benjamin Amoah for more insight on this development. Welcome, Doc. Please, what do you make of the increase in the policy rate by the central bank governor?
The rate increase is coming as a bit of a surprise, because if you look at the indicators that we have seen so far, i.e. inflation and even the TB rates that has significantly been slashed by the Ministry of Finance, one would have expected that a similar trend will be seen in the MPC rate. But just as the governor said, the 100% basis point increase is an attempt to re-anchor or to put it to hold firm the rate of inflation and to stabilize inflation. So this time around, as a liquidity measure, the central bank is using the MPC rate to help stabilize inflation from the monetary point of view, although we are experiencing some disinflation. But to sustain it, then the rate has to be increased. I don't think that this particular rate increase of 100% basis point will be over the long term. If the trend should continue, I believe that by the next MPC meeting, we are going to see a reversal in the rate increase.
Doc, the Bank of Ghana expects improved stability in the FX market, and it's also doing that due to increased inflows and also the remittances. What specific measures are in place you believe can help the central bank ensure the cedi stability?
That means a lot of things. You know, we are talking about the long-term structural issues, but because we are talking about remittance, I'll just zero in on remittances. What we need to do is to see how best, if possible, the central bank can, issue some more license to remittance companies so that they can come in to play within the space as a way of bringing in some competition into that particular space so that the cost of inflows into the country can be reduced. And if possible, the central bank can also look into the fintech space and then try to have a look into some of these fintech companies that are also bringing in funds by way of remittances. We can also talk about the central bank engaging the commercial banks to see how best the commercial banks can reduce the transaction cost on remittances inflows, so that at least to be quite cheaper for funds to flow into the economy. So from the remittances point of view, this is what I will say that the central bank will have to look at. In addition to the everyday discussion that we talk about by way of the structural issues, import-export discussions that we are having, and how that from time to time impact on the cedi-dollar relationship.
So how will the ongoing U.S.-China trade tariff policies affect Ghana's overall trade and possibly our economic outlook? This was one thing the central bank governor made mention of during his MPC release recently.
What we can do in this situation is that Ghana is not a China. Ghana is not a US. These are big players in international trade that are having issues to deal with. And we are part of that arrangement. But we don't have much say in terms of whether US is doing the right thing or China is doing the wrong thing. No. What we can do is rather to adapt our strategies to fit whatever the outcome of some of these trade wars are or will be. What we can see now is that with the current trend, with the increases in tariffs here and there, it is going to make businesses transactions more expensive, especially for a Ghanaian importer. If you are importing from China, definitely you are going to have some difficulties in terms of cost. So our businessmen will have to look at it and see what they can do by way of what is happening between the US and the China and the Chinese government. In terms of global supply chain, yeah, there may be some few disturbances here and there, but then again, our businessmen and women will have to know what they have to do in situations like this. I'm not bringing the central bank because the central bank itself does not trade with the US or with China. It is our businessmen and women who travel to China and some of these places to trade. So it is their responsibility to look at what is happening and to know the implications of some of these decisions on their business, which will then indirectly affect the central bank. But the central bank itself, as central bank, will have very little to do within the space. It is our businesses that must rethink their strategy and how best to benefit from them.
When we look at the numbers of the non-performing loans, it seems to be increasing by the year. What should the central bank take into consideration to mitigate the credit risks in the banking sector going into the left part of the rest of the year?
Yeah, the central bank rightly should be worried, and they are worried, but it is more of the universal banks that are giving out the loans, and it is their responsibility to make sure that the loans that they create perform. That is not to say that the central bank should do nothing and just allow the universal banks to go create these loans for them, the loans to be problematic or difficult to perform. If it is the case that we are having a macroeconomic difficulty in managing loans, which is not necessarily the bank's inability to create loans, but it's more of a countrywide challenge, then it will not be out of place if the central bank considers setting up a secondary market for non-performing loans. So the secondary market for these non-performing loans will now be a one layer on top of the current loan architecture that we have, so that banks, when they create the loans and they are having difficulties, can go onto this secondary market for the non-performing loans to offload these loans to investors who may have interest in purchasing these loans. This particular secondary market for non-performing loans will not just assume that the loans will go back, but there will be in place mechanism to make sure that although these loans are not performing, there are opportunities for them to perform. And then these investors who will have higher risk appetite can participate. When we have such a structure, it will help relieve the banks the burden of managing these non-performing loans all the way through to the very end. It will not also mean that the banks will just go and create bad loans because we have in existence a market for non-performing loans. But at least it will help us to manage the non-performing loans. I'm saying this from the viewpoint that if indeed there is a macro level challenge in managing loans, then we can use the non-performing loan market to solve it. But if it is an issue of the universal banks themselves having challenge in managing the loans, then the central bank will have to come in with limits on how
All
much
right.
the banks can create in terms of loans.
Okay, Doc.
So the banks will not create excessive loans and keep on piling on their books some of these,
Finally,
bad loans.
Doc, the Bank of Ghana plans to introduce a 273-day instrument. What would this mean to the market in wrapping up?
It is good news for the market. If you are an investor, what it means is that the central bank is adding another instrument that will increase the depth of the market. It will help in liquidity management. It will help in matching or dealing with the mismatch that may be existing between the asset and liability for the liquidity managers. It will also create an opportunity for investors who want to invest to take advantage of this 273-day instrument. We should not forget, if you look at the recent T-bill subscription uptake, the Ministry of Finance have been experiencing some under-subscription. The question we need to be asking ourselves is, this under-subscription, where are the funds going? The investable funds. One would have expected over-subscription, but this time around, the interest is no longer in the treasury instrument. Maybe it is because the rates have been slashed. So there must be another strategy to tap into the excess funds that are no longer coming into the treasury bill funds because of the rate reduction from Ministry of Finance. So I am thinking that the central bank is introducing this instrument as a way of mopping up that excess liquidity that would traditionally has flown into the treasury bill market, but because of the rate slash. And this, I think, will help to mop up excess liquidity, which will tie into the governor's statement that they are trying to go ahead of inflation and to bring down inflation in the near term.
Dr. Benjamin Amor, we appreciate your time here on the Business Live for giving us updates on what is happening in the financial market as against what has been released as 28% in terms of the policy rate by the central bank. Now, moving on, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Shirley Ayoko Botry, has underscored the need for government and leaders to look within themselves in boosting economic growth and development. She said this at the Leadership Conversation 2025 organized by the University of Gold Coast.
And I think that we all should now be looking within ourselves to see what we can do for ourselves. No country has been able to develop with aid or assistance because it is out of their own largesse that they will give you what they can. It's the same thing that we're seeing with US aid. We now have to look at what we can do, and it's only trade and investment that can pull us out of poverty and ensure our development. And that is why Commonwealth is looking at the trading and investment as a key way for us to develop our countries. I've talked about the different sizes of economies within the Commonwealth, and without that, it's going to be very difficult.
We have more business update for you after the short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back from that break. Now to more news. Ghana has hosted a national stakeholder dialogue to assess the human rights, living income, environmental due diligence, and gender performance of multinational cocoa companies in Ghana. Project Officer Joseph Autry emphasized the need for stronger collaboration between licensed cocoa buying companies and local communities to enhance infrastructure development. There is more in this report. As part of the Fair for All project, which promotes inclusive business practices and strengthens regulatory frameworks to prevent right violations, St. Ghana convened a one-day national stakeholder dialogue on human rights, living income, environmental due diligence, and gender performance of multinational cocoa companies operating in Ghana. According to Project Officer Joseph Autry, there is a pressing need for stronger collaboration between the licensed cocoa buying companies and local communities.
The farmers are not very educated. Most of them are illiterate, and therefore it's very difficult for them to comprehend, especially when it comes to their living income, certain factors that go into even the cocoa pricing. So I felt like if the farmers could be educated, their capacity could be built through their cooperatives. These licensed cocoa buying companies can actually empower them to be able to gain more knowledge of the work that they are doing, see it more as a business and not just as a legacy that's been handed down to them by their fathers and their grandfathers, and they're also trying to just sort of keep alive, but a business that they could actually run and then make a lot of profit from. So I think their capacity could be built. And then also the licensed cocoa buying companies can also, like I mentioned, interact more with the communities in order to be able to make the developments going on in the communities more aligned with the problems and the needs of the people in the community.
The national dialogue brought together key stakeholders, including representatives from Cocoa Board, government departments and agencies, licensed cocoa buying companies, academia, civil society, and farmer-based organizations. In a bid to strengthen liquidity support for micro and small businesses, Absa Bank has launched a knowledge-sharing initiative with stakeholders in the microfinance sector. The initiative seeks to gather insight that will enhance the bank's relationship with its partners in the small and medium businesses space. Audrey Abaka, Director of SME Banking at Absa, believes the session's feedback will play a pivotal role in developing better support packages for the sector.
As part of efforts to enhance financial inclusion and support micro, small, and medium enterprises, Absa Bank Ghana, in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation, has hosted the Young Africa Works learning event. Discussions were centered on the role of microfinance institutions in lending to the micro-business sector. Head of SME Banking, Audrey Abaka, was hopeful of a positive outcome on all partners.
To bring all of these microfinance institutions that we have supported to reflect on the journey that we have embarked on with them, to learn from their experiences, to generate very healthy feedback, and then also to glean insights that would help us to improve on our framework to lend to these institutions, as well as to improve on the program that we are working on for future projects with our partners.
One of the participants, Joyce Akumwa, explained the importance of the event as an entrepreneur.
That after paying this facility, I'll get the Maroon Capital will help me with more than the amount they gave me, the 10,000 cedis, and then I will be able to expand my business. Then in some 4 or 5 years to come, I should be able to open a different branch somewhere.
The MasterCard Foundation and Absa Bank project is aimed at supporting women-led businesses and youth development across the country.
Away from that, as part of measures aimed at empowering innovative AI startups across the sub-region, Data Melon has stressed the urgent need to expand investment within the space. Country Manager Juliet Amoako said it is imperative to provide access to funding, cloud infrastructure support, and mentorship. She spoke to Joy Business at the Data Melon AI Ignite pitch event in Accra.
The Data Melon AI Ignite pitching event in Accra saw some 10 of Ghana's top AI startups pitching their innovative solutions to a panel of expert judges, investors, and industry leaders. The event offered a unique opportunity to discover game-changing startups, network with key players, and gain insight into the latest AI trends. Here is project lead.
So Data Melon First is an AI-first company, and also when it comes to cloud and and data. That's where Data Melon comes first, global, and it's a global company. So this is Data Melon AI Ignite pitch competition. So we are on a mission to support tech startups across the globe, and we've been able to raise a fund in-house worth $2 million, right, and also earmarked $100K for the top winners globally. So this $2 million funds will be invested into startups that is going to emerge winners, right? And this roadshow is happening in different cities and countries. We just had one in Lagos, Nigeria, where we had the top 3, which will be flown to taken to Marrakesh to pitch for the regional pitch. Then from there, we also take the winner to San Francisco in July.
Speaking to Joy Business, Data Melon country manager Juliet Owusu-Amoako stressed the need for an increased investment in artificial intelligence.
Data Melon is a cloud AI and data consulting firm here in Ghana. We have our headquarters in London, and you can also locate us in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Saudi Arabia. AI Ignite is one of the many initiatives we intend to implement here in Ghana in order to penetrate the digital space here. We had a workshop in February for the financial sector, and what we intend to do is to have these initiatives every quarter to help support the small-scale business and then enterprise space.
Some of the startups also shared their insights with Joy Business.
Cloudfolder aims to bring specialist expertise to every clinician. In Africa, most of the private hospitals lack specialists. So this leads them to refer most of their patient cases, making them lose revenue.
My AI solution is called iAgrow. It's a precision agriculture platform powered by AI that uses drones, satellites, and sensor data to help farmers grow better yields for less. So the problem that we're solving is global food security.
Maunyo Avonyo of Frederick Care AI emerged as the winner of the pitch event, followed by Frederick Monk of Aya Data and Wisdom of Cloudfolder.
That's all for business here on Business Live. My name is Winston Haki. Thanks for watching. Have a festive Eid al-Fitr. Bye-bye.